Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled The Decade College Football Learned the Wrong Lesson. For today's alternate universe in 2002, Florida State wins the national championship. Not because they were flawless, not because the system favored them, but because the system finally admitted it had been lying to itself. This isn't the story of one team, it's the story of a decade where college football learned something uncomfortable. The playoff doesn't reward the best teams, it rewards the best positioned ones. And once that becomes impossible to ignore, the sport had no choice but to change. To be clear, this is a story about structure, not necessarily about scores. Everything else flows from that. 1993, the divergence point when protection disappears. In 1993, college football loses its shock absorbers. Power programs vanish. The institutions that normally contained chaos are suddenly gone, and the sport panics. The response is immediate. A 16-team all-at-large playoff. No auto bids, no protection, total exposure. The idea is simple. If everyone sees everything, fairness will follow. Instead, the opposite happens. Because the first thing exposure reveals isn't parity, it's dependence. Arizona State wins the title, not because they were supposed to, but because nothing was insulated anymore. That wasn't balance, that was the floor falling out. Why this matters. Here's why 1993 matters. The sport didn't ask who's best, it accidentally asked who survives without protection, and not everyone answers the same way. The first real adaptation. The next few years don't restore order, they teach programs how to design around chaos. Michigan stabilizes, Penn State stabilizes. Then Texas makes the most important decision of the decade. They don't chase dominance, they chase insulation. Texas moves into the Big Ten ecosystem, and something subtle happens. Texas still loses some games, but those losses stop meaning the same thing. They fall and don't fall out. That's the moment the sport quietly splits into two classes: teams that must be perfect and teams that are allowed to recover. Hold this thought. The playoff doesn't change outcomes, it changes consequences. That difference defines the next decade. Texas proves the model. From 1998 to 2000, Texas wins 3 straight titles. Not because Texas never stumbles, they do, but because when they stumble, nothing collapses. Meanwhile, let's look at Kansas State. They win, they upset giants, they reach finals, yet every single loss feels terminal. Same sport, same playoff, different structural reality. That's when the illusion breaks. This was never about talent alone, it was about forgiveness. Here's an important distinction. Texas isn't special here, they're proof. Any elite program placed in the structure would have done the same thing. That's the uncomfortable part. The copying era. Once the blueprint is obvious, everybody copies it. But most do it wrong. The SEC crowns flagships without reducing in- internal internal eliminations. The Pac-10 protects USC, but leaves everyone else exposed. Others try to manufacture relevance and quietly fade. Only one move actually fixes the mismatch. Florida State leaves the ACC, not quietly, not defensively. They say it out loud. Our competitive reality no longer matches our competitive structure. They join the SEC. And for the first time, Florida State doesn't need perfection just to breathe. We're near the turn, as at this point, the sport faces a choice: defend the system or admit it needs guardrails. 2001, when the system gets caught. In 2001, something dangerous happens. Kansas State wins the national championship. A program without insulation, without margin, without forgiveness, yet they win anyways. And suddenly the criticism changes. It's no longer who deserves it, it's why do some teams get more chances to fail? That's not a fan argument, that's a governance problem. The 2002 reform, not a revolution. The system doesn't collapse, it compromises. Conference caps, protected seating floors, no auto bids. Insulation is not removed, it's regulated. That same year, Florida State wins the title, not because chaos saved them, not because structure carried them, but because the environment finally matched the team. College football didn't break in this era. It became honest. It learned that teams win championships, conferences win eras, and access matters more than perfection. The playoff didn't fail. It exposed what had always been true. If you enjoy college football stories that explain why the sport feels the way it does, not just who won, like the video, subscribe for more deep structure breakdowns, and tell me in the comments, what moment do you think college football stopped being fair? Because in this universe, that moment wasn't when the system broke, it was when everyone finally learned how to use it.